Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. Welcome to another episode of Your Brand Amplified. I am here with Gary Garth. Gary is the author of the 0 to 100 Million Sales Blueprint book and the Goals, Grit, and Greatness Planner. I can't wait to dig into these and talk about all of your experience that led you to these and everything that you're doing now. So Gary, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely. So you have been a serial entrepreneur since 2002, is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. So before you became an entrepreneur, what were you doing?
Well, I started out as an entrepreneur right at the end of high school, actually.
Oh.
So after my first venture, I opened up basically a retailer, one of the first e-commerce stores in Denmark, Europe. I'm originally from Denmark.
Wow.
It was just one of those kind of lucky incidents where we hit timing. We were the first ones to import DVD movies to Denmark, and we created a little e-commerce store, and there was a high demand for these movies that came what we basically released before they went to cinema. So there was kind of like a little hack there. And we were fortunate to we didn't know at all anything about business or what we were doing. We were like 20 years old, me and my partner back then. But we were fortunate to learn a lot and make some money, and we sold those two stores. And after that, I spent the money in like 2 minutes or so, all the money that I gathered from that project. And then I took a sales job. So I had a sales job for a year or so before I started looking around and said, I could do this better. And that's what basically drove me into my next ventures, which was very much like big outbound call centers with a strong emphasis on B2B. We sold like 35,000 subscriptions to business owners in Denmark with big phone carriers. Back then, it was like an outreach campaign where you would sell a cell phone for $1 back then. That was pretty with as long as you did a 2-year subscription. So we scaled that, and then I ventured into radio broadcasting sales. And then the last 15 years, I've been very focused on digital marketing, technology-enabled and related services. So entrepreneurship for coming up 25 years now.
Amazing. Congratulations. So it was just in your blood, in your DNA from the beginning. Was your family a family of entrepreneurs?
My father was, yes, but I grew up with my mom, who was not. So I think I just had many of those attributes. I was hungry. I wanted to be significant. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to make money. And all those things typically lead one towards entrepreneurship. And that has evolved ever since,
Yeah. And what brought you into each of those businesses? Was it market opportunity? Was it something you were just already interested and engaged in?
Yeah, great question. I think all of them has been different circumstances. My decisions now are way more driven on a purpose and with consideration of, am I making an impact here? Is this something I'm going to be excited about getting up to every day? And that's because of my past experiences where, like one of my first projects when I was 23, with those projects, it scaled quickly. And I became a millionaire back then and just realized at an early age that just making a lot of money or achieving a certain milestone or hitting these goals does not equate to happiness or fulfillment. So after I sold my last company back in 2020, and I've been very considerate about like what's my next project going to be. But my prior projects has been very much based on circumstance. For instance, the last agency that I co-founded, we had thousands of clients and 300 million on management, and it grew exponentially. We were 85,000 company awarded 4 years in a row. That was very much because I was in Denmark, Europe, and the Danish government had a program where they would provide foreign aid to third world countries. In an unconventional fashion. They detected that there's a lot of corruption in those kind of countries. So instead, they would provide upwards of $1 million investment subsidy to companies that are quote unquote already successful if they were to export the services to these countries to create a job to stimulate the economy and drive innovation overall. So back then I was about 30 years old, and the consultants told me that, like, Gary, you're very good at sales and marketing. Why don't you move to Nicaragua? Apply for this fund there is and target U.S. based businesses. So that's what drove me over there. I didn't know much about it. My reaction first was, Nicaragua, is that in Africa? Or what? And then fast forward a couple of months and I was all in the project over there. So I've always been very open to risk as long as there's an exciting opportunity associated with it.
Amazing. And now you're in Medellin? Colombia?
Now in Medellin, Colombia, yes. So I think it was first back in 2017. I was living in Miami and we had offices there with my last company. And we were solicited by this organization called Pro Colombia. And they basically said, Gary, you're working in marketing and technology. Why don't you come to Medellin and set up offices? They had this initiative and this 10-year plan about becoming the Silicon Valley of Latin America. So they have a lot of benefits, tax exemptions, et cetera, for foreign investment as long as in that category. So that's why I moved here. That's why I started this incubator offices that I'm running, the new Growth Accelerate project, and a few other investments. So I'm all in Medellin and operating from there. That's home these days.
Yeah. Has that been part of also, yes, there were tax implications and good things you could do because you had a very successful career already, but it was also part of you wanting to give back and find ways to help other people learn these digital skills in these different countries?
Yes, that was definitely a benefit of that. I remember many of the, I'm very fast. I put in my book, I'm very blessed that there's so many former employees that now run their own companies or work in Silicon Valley or et cetera. And they sometimes I joke when we're chatting with friends and they're like, remember that time where I hired you for $800 a month that you came from a call center and now they're earning six figures or plus. So that's just a huge reward, something that feels great. And we're trying to do somewhat the same. Our vision with this project that I just launched, Elevate.io, is we become the biggest growth accelerator in the vertical that we operate in worldwide and the largest agency player in Colombia. That's our modest goal for the next 3 years. That's why we're here. So we're doing a lot of initiatives. We have also the plan. I translated to Spanish. We do mentoring for local talent. We work with local companies and try to help them. So we do a lot to brand ourselves locally and also attract talent. And I think it's about giving and growing, that goes a long way.
Yeah, definitely. So I think you're such an anomaly because everything you've done has been like touching gold, right? It's been successful. Did you have any pitfalls when you were launching your companies? Because you've successfully exited so many things. You've, gone from 0 to 100 million in sales time and time.
Well, I'm only mentioning my successes, right? I have at least 15 startups that I have that I'm not mentioning right now that have failed. Yeah. I either invested or co-founded and the idea was great. We were first movers, so some groundbreaking concept. For XYZ reasons, they didn't necessarily work out. So I've had a lot of failures, definitely. I think I'm very good at also pulling out if I detect things are not working. I'm also very good at launching things with like a minimum viable product application to see if it works. I actually put a strong emphasis in my book that instead of going into an extensive analysis paralysis before launching, try to go out and test the validation of product or the new market. I put some feet on the street and trying to sell it, pitch your product. So I don't consider them failures, but when there's a proof of concept, so to speak, then I double down on it.
Yeah. No, I think that's important because so many times you hear all the success stories, but there's so much more that goes into these, I won't say failures, the lessons that you learned that helped you with the next venture and the next venture and the next venture.
Yes.
And
what's your take on that? Obviously, I checked your website and all your reviews and your followers and your big audience. I mean, you must have seen this firsthand or maybe tried it even yourself, right? To some extent.
I've definitely had a few different businesses. Yeah. So everything from real estate investment to a social club in Houston with a retail store and a clubhouse, and then moved back to Los Angeles and the pandemic hit. So that all shut down and just went right back into marketing and PR. But yeah, I look at those as what could I have done better, right? What are the lessons that I learned? What mistakes did I make? Whether it was hiring the wrong person, like you said, you invested in all of these different projects that maybe weren't as successful, but they helped you figure out and hone those skills, which is right how that gets into your book. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what was the impetus behind writing the book and then launching a planner. I love planners and I'm trying to find the right one that's really going to work for me and help me be more successful. So we can start with the book first, and then, I have so many more questions for you.
Of course. Well, on the book, in my last project, we did a lot of channel sales. So in other words, we had a white label marketing solution and we launched that in just a couple of years. We had hundreds of resellers selling our solutions. And a part of that development of that program, I think that we were very quick to identify that key was to enable others to sell our solutions, equip them with all the sales enablement collateral they need giving them the framework, helping them with proposals, helping them with research, and basically also training them. So for many of our larger resellers, also small resellers for that matter, I would work with the VP of sales. I would sometimes fly in. I would help them. I would jump on calls together to pitch it. I would often come in and train the sales team on some fundamentals sometimes, but also if they were advancing as part of like a quarterly business review or an annual business review, and like how to take things to the next level and offer some complementary training. And I did that maybe 10, 20 times. And then I started to see some comments consistent, like, wow, damn, Gary, those some golden nuggets. I wish I would have reported that. Could you put that down on paper and send it to us? I was like, maybe I should do that.
Yeah.
So I started doing that. And in my book, as I mentioned, and I worked very closely with the channel sales team of both Google and Microsoft for over a decade, enabled many agencies. So I had the privilege of working with, I think, some of the smartest people and top executives and very skilled, way more skilled than myself. And basically, pick their brain on what worked. They have all this research and data across tens of thousands of companies. So I saw firsthand what works for companies from a marketing lead generation standpoint. How do you align marketing and sales more effectively? And how do you close more deals by having the right processes, systems in place and scaling things? So that's what I wanted to put into my book and just help a lot of entrepreneurs. I mean, I think it's common knowledge that 80% of entrepreneurs cease to exist within 18 months or less, right? And only a fraction of those actually make it beyond 1 million in annual recurring revenue. So for me, it's a book that breaks down the stages. How do you launch successfully, mitigate the risk of failure? How do you get up to that first point of breaking and becoming sustainable? And then as you start adding like your first sales rep, the first systems and document everything, how do you scale it up to like beyond 1 million, 10 million? And then afterwards, it becomes a different a different game. It's all about processes, documentation, and systems, and how do you hire the right people? How do you have mentoring program, and how to start to scale your sales and marketing teams more effectively. So it takes people throughout that whole, it's 420 pages, and basically it's not something you have to pick up and read from one end to another. And like I typically say, if you are looking to add your sales and marketing tech stack, put that in place instead of just throwing different things together and hoping it works, then read the chapter on the significance of technology at scale and start piecing the right elements that your sales team will adapt or your marketing team will adapt, and make sure that it's aligned with your overall business objective. If you're looking to hire your first VP of sales, there's a whole section on what characteristics to look for, how to make sure that they get integrated to your company. And it's typically a very expensive hire. It's typically where a lot of companies, sometimes it can almost be make it or break it. And so there's different sections depending on where you are in your company's evolution, so to speak.
Very cool. Yeah. So really anybody can pick it up and they'll find something of value for the stage that they're in. Yeah, that's so cool. And actually, I was going to ask you about the statistic about 80% of companies failing, besides reading your book, which we'll put in the show notes and everything. But what are some things that you see in common that cause these companies to fail within that first year to 18 months?
The lack of putting sales and revenue activities first as a priority, right? And our part-time angel investor as well invested in quite a few projects that get pitched all the time. And I talk with all these great engineers or subject matter experts in the category that they all of a sudden go solopreneurs, so they launch the companies, they're trying to raise capital, and they have done a perfect plan on mapping out everything and anything except what's the go-to-market strategy and how they're going to crack the code on that. So I think it's about very quickly figuring out how you're going to acquire customers, where they're operating, who you're up against from a competitive standpoint, and doubling down on that. And as a founder, if you're not have the sales DNA, which I think every founder should be the chief sales officer as well in the company, especially in the beginning. You can't expect hire other people to sell if you can't sell your own product, which you're supposed to be passionate about and making a difference in the world. If you don't have it, if it's against your DNA, and it just that very quickly make sure that you partner up with the right resources or create the right framework and build a sales plan. I put that as a whole chapter in my book, basically break down everything, understand, to do proper research on the demographics, the psychographics of your prospects, the mystery shopping if need be, create a plan, have the right system in place, have scripts, rebuttals, email sequences, enable automation for your sales process, and just go to market. Because Like every day I speak with companies that look to contract us to help grow revenue. And, the very first thing I go in and say, okay, let me look at your data. There's no data very often, right? There's zero intelligence on the sales cycle, the customer journey.
Wow.
So they're calling like, how can we grow revenue? It's like, I don't know what to look for here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's make sure that we establish a process first. Let's make sure that we're measuring the sales metrics. I have 20 sales metrics in the book that I highlight and recommend implementing. And then based on that, we can look to optimize, right? Because very often I see they have some direct response campaign looking to generate leads. And they're generating leads, and it takes hours sometimes before they react to a lead. And it's common knowledge that typically when it depends obviously on the scope, the size of the deal, but 80% of deals are closed based on the vendor that's contacted first because they have a first opportunity to steer the conversation in the direction and control the narrative. And it typically takes 8 touch points or more, sometimes upwards hundreds to close a deal. So do you have the sequence built out? So, post-discovery, post-demo call, post-proposal calls where it's automated, so it's consistent and it's continuously adding value in terms of helping them make the decision. Or well, it's simply just, here's our proposal, what do you think? So very often when I work with companies, it's simple stuff like, okay, if you have an ROI calculator in place, what's the impact going to be of the solution in the organization? Is it time-saving technology that you're adding to the equation? It's going to expand your share of wallet per customer? Is it going to reduce overhead or reduce customer churn? What are we aiming for? And then making sure that we have collateral that can emphasize that can expand so that your buyers become more educated, more informed, can make the right decisions, not just based on emotion, but B2B sales process is very rational. It's like, how is this going to impact our bottom line? Do you have the collateral that can enable that?
Yeah.
So it's hard to give you like a silver bullet, say, do this one thing. It's about mapping out the whole sales plan, I would say.
Yeah, I love this because this is also the way that I work in marketing and PR is first I'm going to start with your brand. Do you know who you are? Do you know what your competitors are doing? Do you know how you're different or better? Do you know what your call to action? Do you know what your messaging is? Because if I'm going to work with you, I need to know that you know your story, you know that customer journey. Well, you know who the customer is, first of all, and then you know how you want to communicate with them and what those touch points are. Because and we always say minimum 8 to 12 touch points before somebody is going to push purchase. But that also, a lot of that has to be like brand sentiment. We do a lot of analysis on that, psychographic, demographics. Because if you don't have all of this research, you don't really understand your audience. You don't know how to sell to them properly. And so you have all of these things. And then that's when you create the emotional connection, right? That goes into the sales messaging. These are things that always need to be reinforced, especially when you see so many things changing in the world and, what system are you going to use? This, that, the other. But these are tried and true tactics that you must institute.
Amen. And I think so nowadays, everybody's on social media looking for this next hack or shortcut or course. There's so many experts overnight, and okay, now AI, they will boost sales that we just figure out a way to incorporate. But it's like sports. It's like education. You got to get the fundamentals right before anything else. And if 9 out of 10 people don't do it, that's why 80% of people fail, in my humble opinion. So at least I see those patterns again and again. So it's not difficult to get done. I mean, it's not rocket science. I think the difficulty could be the application in rolling it out and get it adopted by a team. And how do you create a coaching framework so that actually gets embedded into your culture and the behaviors and it's consistent? And, that could be difficult. So especially if you have done all this research and you contact an agency such as yours and you get all this intelligence, you have it at your fingertips and you're deploying it, that the challenge then comes when you're adding like sales rep number 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth, where I see companies, maybe they don't have a proper onboarding plan. So what's the 90-day onboarding plan in place to make sure that all this knowledge is adopted and they understand? And if not, do you have a coaching framework in place to continuously optimize based on their performance, right? Because 2 out of 3 sales reps, they fail, within a few months, right? I want to say like less than 30% of sales reps actually hit their monthly quota. So the very first thing you can do, Jenny, and improve your bottom line is simply just increase the efficiency. And I think that's applying the right systems. And like many companies I deal with, even 10 million plus, they don't have a system that's fully configured. By that, I mean a CRM. That's like the cornerstone of the customer journey, and then start adding technology to that. So you get what you measure, right? So if you don't have that in place, you cannot really roll out systems and processes to optimize it. So.
Are you ready to take your brand to new heights? Join the Brand Amplifier for Entrepreneurs program. Learn how to build, elevate, and amplify your brand with a comprehensive 10-module course. Learn more about it and other ways to implement our strategies at fullcapacitymarketing.com. Click on EFCM Learning Hub for more information. Can't wait to help you amplify your brand. I have to believe that you've had some really good mentors in your life.
Amen. Yes.
Yeah. Are there 3 people who've been most influential for you in your career?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would say one is the guy who wrote the foreword of my book, Ben Tyson. He's the global head of sales enablement at Google. So he's been there many years, but at one point when I got to know him, he enabled the agency partners for Google on the channel sales team. He flew in to help train my team.
Wow.
And I learned so much from him. That's why I was very blessed that he wrote the foreword to my book and all the intelligence in terms of what actually works, right? He's trained thousands of plus agencies and tens of thousands of sales reps. So that knowledge was very impactful. But there's also external mentors that's not necessarily been in my life. I'm a big fan of, for instance, Tony Robbins. I love everything he preaches. I was a platinum member 1 year. I had the privilege of being very close to him and his program. And then I will say other elements is maybe books. I like to read a lot. I think that's a good way to get indirect mentorship, so to speak. So to just pick up books and read biographies, what worked for other people. Most recently, I read The Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. I think they're going to make a movie about a documentary soon. And you read about his entrepreneurial journey and you see, wait a minute. It's not just tough for me. It's not me that's doing something wrong. That's that's the name of the game, becoming an entrepreneur. You're going to face adversity, right? So it helps you and your path and just as an entrepreneur, I would say.
What is something that you wish people had told you who were successful entrepreneurs when you were starting on your journey?
I put a chapter in my book that's called Double Down in Strengths and Delegate the Rest. So simply welcoming mastery, right? For instance, I was always looking to improve on my weaknesses. And I was a CEO all of a sudden for a company with 300 employees that grew. And then I didn't have a strong financial background. So my board of directors decided to send me to Harvard and take finance for senior executive courses. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? The reason we're at this point is I'm good at something. Let me instead do that and let somebody else worry about theirs. So I'm not the CEO candidate for the company at this stage that I put somebody in, but let me just do what I love to do, right? And that's being in front of clients, being in front of partners, and being in front of prospective or future employees and sell them on the vision and what we're going to do in this world and the impact. So whether it's client, partners, employees, I love to be in front of that. So doubling down on your strengths. And that goes also, if you're not good at that, just welcoming that and then delegate the rest. You go out at that sparks happiness, fulfillment, and way better outcome as for business.
So let's move to talk about your planner a little bit.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
You have the book and then Goals, Grit, and Greatness Planner. Why did you decide to put a planner into the world?
Yes. So this was back in 2020 when I sold the shares in my last company and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I spent almost a whole year trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up and just about to invest in 2 rehabs, boutique luxury rehabs, one in the Dominican and the other one in Canada. And was going to come in and help a lot on the marketing side and as an investor help grow these clinics. And it was just as I was doing, participation and investigating the business, I just saw these people that, were very successful, some also not successful at these places, obviously, but they seemed kind of lost in life. And I was like, there's all these therapists and psychiatrists and there's all this treatment and all these medicine that they're given. But I was like, for me, it's very simple to say, okay, let me assess my life. Let me try to, reconsider, what's been shaping my destiny. Let me try to redefine that. Let me try to establish new goals, align those goals, whether it's annual goals, quarter goals, weekly goals, aligning them with my long-term vision.
Nice.
And small things that was not in place. For me, it's all about habits. So, we are a creature of the small daily habits and decisions that we take all the time. So how do you establish some healthy habits? How do you control and monitor that, put that in your plan as well? I also felt out that, many of these people that I saw at these 2 luxury addiction treatment centers, it's like, why are you unhappy and unfulfilled? Because you actually have $100 million in your bank. You should be sitting there crying, but it was like, because they're not exercising gratitude, simple things like that. So I put that in the plan
I
as
love
well.
that.
A small exercise like that, which I think can help you create a life of balance and fulfillment. So it's not just about achievement of that milestone, but it's merging in all those best practices that I personally find work for me.
Yeah.
So I didn't end up investing in this too. Actually, it didn't work out because of COVID, and we couldn't fly to those destinations for about 7 months. But then I had a good outcome of the plan, and now we sell it to a lot of companies. We sell it to a lot of internally. We use it every morning when I have a daily huddle with the team. I'm like asking, okay, what's your number one priority for the day? Because I asked him in the huddle, for instance, then I said, XYZ, what's the challenge, and how does that align with with our quarterly target, our OKRs as a company? So it helps really align company objectives with personal goals and help people just steer in the right direction. And I think that's what being a leader is all about, is influencing people to perform at their best. So that was a lot of my motivation on how we use the planner nowadays.
Nice. I love that you put so much intentionality into it. And you mentioned putting gratitude and also thinking about balance. And that is a perfect segue, because my next question was, you are so successful. You have your hands in so many ventures. You have your book, you have your planner, you have these businesses, you're an angel investor. How do you find balance in your life? What do you do for fun? And how do you weave that in?
But yeah, I don't think I consider myself successful per se. I big heart, hairy, ambitious goals I'm pursuing, but I'm content, I'm fulfilled. I wake up every day excited, and I try to maintain a balance, because I've been in some very dark places where I was like making a shitload of money and been working around the clock, and then making sacrifices that were not healthy for me, right? So I'm very conscious about that. For me, it's okay, spending time with my 10-year-old daughter, go get an ice cream with her, enjoying her, putting away my phone, so we can spend 1-2 hours at least of quality time, and we can joke around and have fun, do things that she likes, so I could be the inspiration for her, the next many years. But I also like to do other crazy stuff. I'm a part-time DJ. I like to DJ at some clubs sometimes. I'm a big-time adventurer. I travel a lot, so I do a lot of things. My challenge is maybe I get distracted by the next fun thing. I'm doing things 24/7, but that keeps my mind off business all the time. So I'm not thinking about business 24/7.
Yeah. Amazing. You also are an angel investor, as we mentioned. Do you work with a specific vertical within that, like medtech, fintech, edtech, or like how do you identify who you want to invest in? Because I'm assuming you don't seem like somebody who's just going to invest money. But you're going to be really involved in the process and help them find that success if you see the potential.
Yes. I'm also an asterisk to that. I'm not a big time angel investor. I'm invested in a few projects, and the own projects that I rolled out start consuming the majority of my time, but it has to be typically related to software as a service, and it has to be US-based focus. Part of my motivation also coming here is there's so many successful technology companies coming out of Colombia, especially in Medellin, that maybe just needed that business development mindset on taking these products global, nation, overseas, so to speak. So that's my focus, B2B, and it typically has to be technology-related software as a service is my focus.
Okay. Interesting. I might have somebody for you. So what else would you want to do if you weren't doing what you do right now? Is there some other career out there? Like, would you want to be a professional DJ and travel around the world DJing? Or is there something else that really sparks and lights that fire in you?
Yeah, so right now with my company, Elevate.io, we're basically a growth accelerator for mental health care and addiction treatment centers. So we just started late last year, but we've been fortunate. We had 30-some plus clients, some very big names including, and I love doing that because we're indirectly helping a lot of people out of suffering by enabling these provider centers, facilities to basically close the gap on this huge demand there is on people suffering either from mental health care or addictions to big pharma and so forth. Wow. And I would like to invest further and expand my footprint in there in different shape or form. I'm just seeing so much. So that's definitely the path I'm going down, because it's very rewarding when having a product or solution that actually does a difference. And I think a lot about that, because my last company, our revenue we grew exponentially, as I mentioned, and got all these awards, etc. But at one point I was looking myself in the mirror and I looked at a portfolio, and 70% of our portfolio was personal entrepreneurs. And I was like, how am I helping the world become a better place by supporting these vultures, so to speak, said in a nice way. So I'm very passionate about that vertical and investing more into that, expanding it.
That definitely, it was something that we needed before the pandemic, but the pandemic definitely brought it out more. So
Yes.
I love the fact that you're providing this resource.
1 out of 3 Americans now are supposed to have mental health issues.
Yeah.
That's staggering, whether depression, anxiety, or whichever disorder it may be. But I think it's just, a lot of people, I think it's right in front of them, the solution, what they need to break out of those negative patterns. So whether it's via the planner or helping facilities or investing in their own facility, that's my direction. Helping people like that.
Wonderful. Well, and people are willing to talk about it a lot more than they used to be as well.
Yes, thankfully. Yes, thank God.
So that helps open people's minds to the possibility and being able to see, okay, there are solutions, and here's one of them. Yeah.
Yes.
That's so cool. I love that you're doing that. What are some of the other areas that you're really passionate about? Because you mentioned you really want to spend your time making a difference in people's lives and giving back, that you're finding more joy in that than working hard and making just lots of money, but not having that fulfillment.
Yeah. Well, I love entrepreneurship and I love to help people succeed. Yeah. It gives me a kick I can't put words to. So working with projects, working with startups, working with companies that has growth potential, that's almost like criteria for me working with them. I can't work on a business where I come in and, hey, let's work on a 10% improvement and what the goal is modest. I want to do something where let's at least shoot for the stars and the moons and try to make something happen. So I work with a lot of companies where I act as a consultant, a mentor, or we come in and help them with sales enablement, implementing systems, technology, CRM, add that to the equation. And I love to work with companies, especially if they have, solutions, products that are making a difference. That gives me a kick. And I just found out after, selling my last company, I spent almost a year where I was like, okay, now I have this big house at the beach and this bit I'm bored out of my mind. Oh. And that's not happiness. And now I'm actually busy. Yesterday I worked 14 hours, but I went over the smile on my face, So it was like, as long as you have that, then achievement without fulfillment is the ultimate failure, right? So I like what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, is there any other advice you'd like to give to the person who is just starting their entrepreneurial journey, or maybe they've had some success, but they're in that struggle of, are they going to continue going?
Yes, absolutely. I would say, based on what I see, again, because, every day I get hit up by companies and do a Google Ads audit or review my website. How can we increase conversion rates on XYZ solutions? Should we roll out this campaign over that? Is TikTok a new harder channel than another? And I always, again, come back to them and they're missing the fundamentals. So stuff like having, again, a CRM in place that's fully configured, that aligns with your workflow and process. Step number 1, so that you get the data, you get the metrics that you need in order to optimize. Because again, are you not answering the phone on time? Are you missing out calls? Are you only sending out 1-2 touch points subsequent? Is your solution demos, do they suck? Is the inconsistency? Is it more, how is the rep feeling on the given day in terms of how your solution is presented? Is your sales and marketing aligned with the efforts, right? It's the content that you're producing, just like because your agency said that you can rank for these search terms, that's going to help your SEO. It's going to help the perceived value of your company and your solutions, and it can help move people down funnel. So I would say, first and foremost, make sure you get those fundamentals right. Create a sales plan. Roll it out, get support if need be, and that can go a very long way. Instead of just looking for the next big hack or this next tool that you get pitched that's going to help you generate more leads or get your brand in front of all these people. You hear it all the time, influencer marketing now, and next is, there's always this next thing you can chase. But getting the fundamentals, I can't stress it enough, can really just grow your company exponentially. So I would say put a focus on that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I know I'm going to link to your website, which is garygarth.com, and people can find out everything they need there. Click on your social links, get your book, the planner, learn about your angel investing and your other strategies. And you did share a really good quote or mantra, way of thinking. Do you have any others that you'd like to share with us? I always like to end with what inspires you. Do you have a verse, a poem, a mantra, a quote that helps you keep going every day and that provides you with inspiration?
You're putting me on the spot with that one. A particular one, no, I wouldn't say so. Recently, because we're just starting up a new project, we have like 15 employees and 30 plus clients. So it's really chaotic. Everything is built up phase. I think a lot of people can resonate with that. And I would say, like, we've been saying a lot. It's because there's a lot of challenges, right? So I would say, like, great leaders spend 5% of their time on the problem, assessing it, and then directly move to spending 95% of the time on the solution. Like, we do not get caught up in the negativity of the challenge or, oh shit, what are we going to do? Very quickly assess it. There's solutions to everything. And the quicker you can get your whole team on that mindset, the faster you're going to overcome that hurdle, I would say. So, Annika, I also want to say, so to everybody who's been listening and if they're inspired, go to my page, you'll see this book. Costs $30, paperback version. I can guarantee you apply 1-2 concepts. It will transform your business. If you go to my website, for the first 50 listeners of your show, if you apply your brand amplified all in small to the coupon code, I'll discount it to $0.
Wow.
All I hope for is that you apply the concepts. And if it works, please write me a good 5-star review, and I'll be very grateful for that.
Wow. Thank you so much for that generous offer. And I know I'm looking over here. I have your book. I have your planner. I have been slammed. I teach university also, so I'm just ending the semester and starting the next one, but I'm like, I'm going to have time finally to dig in and start using it myself. So Gary, thank you so much. This has been a really great conversation. I'm really excited.
Likewise.
Thank you for the offer for the readers and listeners and viewers. If you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening to it on your favorite platform, just really excited to have your insight and knowledge with us today.
Likewise. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you to the audience for coming for another episode of Your Brand Amplified. I will be back again in a few days with another amazing guest and can't wait to be back. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.